What up, guys? This is the Karmic DF, and today we're going to talk about how hard relationships are to start, and dating is super hard these days. So let's talk about the what not to do's and the what to do's, because a lot of times our inner child is projecting what we want, like we all have this common goal eventually at a certain age where we're like, I want to settle down, I want to be with somebody who compliments me in a good way, who fits me, who would be a good lifelong partner. But when we date, we feel all of our inner childhood wounds getting triggered, right? Because like this person may not like me and this person's not ready for a relationship and the person that I like is already talking to someone else and all the complications, right? And we break our own hearts, and that's the point, is we see the potential of things. We're often looking for who can fit the shoe, kind of like Cinderella, like who can fit that shoe and be our prince or princess, depending on your gender, and what gender you're into. But one of the main issues that we have is that when we go into new dating, we often think that this has to be something, right? Like the next person that we date, we got to get it right. The next person that we date is going to be the one that we marry, And you can't really plan for things like that because you don't know if it's a karmic soul tie. It could be a soulmate. It could be a twin flame sent to rock your world and then bounce. You have no idea what you're in for. And especially from all of the trauma, we tend to be afraid of relationships, so then we put our guards up, and then like when we get into new things, we sabotage ourselves because we start to date and then we think, okay, this person fits these things that I'm looking for, A, B, C. Oh, they're perfect, they're great, like let's make this work. And then we project what we want and what we think will happen in the future, like actually having a relationship. But sometimes that just doesn't happen. You meet somebody and they may not know if they want a relationship or not. And then you have to hear that. You have to listen to that. If you are in a place where you're in a relationship type of attitude and you're talking to someone who's like, yeah, I'm not ready for a relationship, I'm not ready to date, then you are setting yourself up for failure because they've already told you what they don't want, exactly what you're going for. So now that you have this disconnect here where this person does not want a relationship but you do, now you're going like, oh, like with time I can change them. With time they'll realize how valuable I am. With time things will change, the connection will get stronger and stuff like that. And that can happen, but it's rare. More often than not, it's people that are telling you the truth. They're saying, hey, I'm not ready for a relationship. Hey, I don't want a relationship. I'm having fun. I don't want to settle down. And what we hear is we can change it. We can work with that. At least like maybe they're kind of open because they're flirting. Maybe they're kind of open because, like they don't want a relationship, but they took you to dinner. You know what I mean? And then we create these stories in our head. We create these fantasies of what it could be. And then every time when that situationship, when that dating, that person, whenever it fails, we go, oh my God, like what is wrong with me? What did I do? Why doesn't that person want to be with me? But the reality is they already told you. They told you in the beginning that they weren't ready for that because that's not something that's high on their priority list. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do with that except realize and learn from it, saying to yourself, hey, like now when I go and I talk to somebody, my first thought's going to be like, so what are you looking for? And if they're like, oh, I want to see where things go, you could always say like, well, do you see relationships in your future? Like, is that like where your end game is? Is that where you want to go to? Because if you're getting somebody who is, like burned from exes, who is, one of the boys and doesn't really feel like settling down yet, or a guy who's super into their career, and this can go with either gender, obviously. I'm just speaking from experience here. We need to stop breaking our own hearts. We need to stop assuming that what they're saying isn't the basis of the truth, because just because you have a friend whose friend's cousin, had a guy who said he didn't want a relationship and now they're married doesn't mean that that's going to happen to you. If you've ever seen the movie He's Just Not That Into You, there's the exception and then there's the rule. The thing that happens all the time, right? The thing that we want to avoid so much, because a lot of this also has to do with childhood trauma. If you're trying to win over somebody who already said they didn't really want it, that could be your inner child because of childhood trauma. Like maybe you had a parent that wasn't 100% there for you. that didn't have your back, that didn't care about your emotions and stuff like that. Now you have this subconscious thing in the back of your mind going, I need to prove that I'm worthy. And then what do? We get into relationships that were never meant to be relationships, that turn out to be situationships because they already told us they don't want a relationship, but we feel that desire to prove ourselves because we've had family members let us down, we've had other relationships let us down, and we keep repeating the cycle. And then we wonder, why do we keep getting these emotionally unavailable partners? Why do we keep getting these people that, you know, like for me, a big issue for me is like, I'm 30 years old. I'm not a kid anymore, you know? So like relationship sounds like the next step, you know, like career, relationship, like those are goals for, you know, healthy individuals. Not that I'm going to crap on people that don't want relationships, but you have to understand that if you guys aren't even on the same starting page, it's not going to work out. You're not going to convince them. And if you do somehow convince them, then you get the resentment. Then you get the fact that they might be up to no good because they probably didn't want a relationship to begin with. See how complicated it gets? This all starts with, how much do you love yourself? And how much are you willing to give of yourself that may not actually end up being anything, you know? So like, say you're dating someone and you're taking it slow. How much time before you say to yourself, okay, I need this to go somewhere or else there's really no point in this continuing, you know, because we're all looking for different things. And if you want casual, then yeah, that's great. But for the people that don't want casual, we have to stop dating the people that are telling us that they don't want more than casual, right? Because like we go on dating apps and stuff because COVID and everything like that. We have minimal options, you know. We go on to Tinder and all that stuff, and people are like, not really looking to settle down right now, just looking to like meet new people, you know. If you're in a place where you want to give your heart, give your soul to somebody, if you want to grow and be like a teammate, a team player, like have a relationship like that, then you got to stop saying yes to these people that are very obviously telling us, like, you're not going to change my mind. I'm not ready to date, you know? And I'm guilty of this, which is why, like, this is really important that we should talk about this more, because it took me a long time to realize it too. To those who've been in the twin flame journey, I went through all of the stages of grief when that situation went down. And now, looking back at it, it was like, oh, I broke my own heart. Granted, you know, you're going to have those people that will say that they're not ready for a relationship, they're not ready for commitment, but they still want all the perks of it, right? So like you'll meet somebody who's like, I'm not ready, but I'll see where it goes. And then they do everything that's basically a relationship, but they don't want the title. You know what I mean? We got to stop going after people like this. We have to stop, because what we're doing is telling ourselves that we're not worthy of the love that we're looking for, you know? Because like with the whole twin flame debacle, he told me he didn't want a relationship. He told me he wasn't ready for a relationship. The one thing that he did wrong was continue to talk to me knowing that that's what I wanted. That's where he was in the wrong. He should have been like, this is what you want. This is not what I want. We probably don't match. But unfortunately, you know, if a guy or girl, whatever, it could go both ways, can get what they want without having to open their heart, without having to be vulnerable, of course they're going to do that, which is why we constantly get into situationships, because it's like, all right, I'll only give a little bit of me and then I'll get all the good stuff, but I keep myself safe. And if you want to stop being in these surface level situationships, relationships, if you get there, what you have to do is, if you're going to date somebody who has said that if they said they don't want a relationship, don't waste your time. Just don't, because you're going to get your heart broken. They've already told you how they feel. They're not ready. That's not something that's in their peripherals. That's not something that's a goal of theirs. And the longer that you try, the more your heart's going to get broken. Because trust me, I've been there a million times. I've been there. And now it's weird because, like, be very careful with this. You could switch to emotionally avoidant after getting your heart broken so many times because you didn't realize that we project quite often. We do. We project quite often. You know, I stayed in that situationship for on and off for like a year and nothing changed. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I make this? Because he already told me. Just like they always already tell us. They don't want a relationship. They're not ready for commitment. They don't want to give 100% of themselves. And we're not going to judge them, right? Like, as long as they're not toxic. If they're toxic, go off queen, go off king. But we can't judge them for not being in a place that they're not ready, because a relationship for some people is a lot. It's opening up your heart, and some people aren't ready to do that. But we also have to take accountability for the fact that we are hearing what they're saying and we're ignoring it anyway. So when you're dating, when you're starting, when you're going on your Tinder app because you don't know where else to go because there's nowhere to freaking date these days, listen to what they're saying. Read their profile. Does it say, I'm just looking for fun, I don't want a relationship? And meanwhile, you want a relationship, but you're sitting here and you're like, oh my God, we have all these things in common. They're good looking. We got a vibe, Sometimes the vibe's not enough. Sometimes chemistry is not enough. And I'm not saying that like a soul perspective, because you'll feel that tie. Like soulmate, twin flame, you will feel that tie. But if you're just like infatuated with the idea of a relationship, infatuated with the idea of that person because of the potential you could see, you're breaking your own heart. And we do this time and time again. And we don't see the problem because we don't have that friend that goes like, hey, you probably shouldn't do that, because we all want to root for each other, right? We all want to be like, girl, boy, get you some, like do what you got to do to make yourself happy. But we have to police the things that we're going after before we say that this could make us happy. Because be honest with yourself. How many times have you met someone that was like, oh my God, I think they're so great for me, but they've already said at least a couple of things that make it very clear they're going to let you down in the end. There has been tons of times where I would meet somebody and I'm like, oh my God, the vibe is there. It feels really wonderful. I really, really like this person. And then they ghost, right? They just disappear because like that attraction's too strong, or, the connection's too strong. Either way, they ghost. And why do they ghost? Because they told us in the beginning they weren't ready. And instead of holding that anger inside of us, because that's something that we do pretty often when our hearts are broken and stuff like that. We're so angry. We're like, how could you do that to us? Blah, 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 blah. But what we need to see is, what did we do to ourselves? What did we contribute to this heartbreak? I could not look back then, but now it's like, yeah, I did break my own heart. I wasn't listening. I didn't hear it because I wanted so badly to prove myself. And that's where we get it wrong. If you want a partner that's going to love you and appreciate you and be exactly, the right fit for you, you have to stop saying yes to the people that sound good enough because you don't want to be alone. And listen, we're all guilty of this, right? It's COVID. Nobody's really happy being alone. But don't break your own heart, Listen to what these people are saying to you. Are they saying, I'm not ready for a relationship? Are they saying, I just want to see what happens and take it slowly, but there's no actual talk about like, could it be something eventually? You need to have the tough conversations first, because that will save you months of pain, months of agony, and you'll know. And then, if it's somebody where it's like they're not against a relationship, but they weren't necessarily looking for it, but they're open to it, that's when you give yourself like a time frame where you're like, I'm going to have fun and I'm not going to put the projections on it that I usually do, be like, I'm just having fun. Don't overanalyze it. Go out on the date. Don't be like, oh, he'd be a great father. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy stuff. We need to stop doing that, because not only does that let us down if it doesn't work, but we're also putting unrealistic standards on that person that we've just met, Like, we can't just expect them to be perfect. And on top of that, like, how hard is it to change just on your own? So how do you expect someone to be everything you need if they're not already that person? You know what I mean? So instead of just feeling sorry for yourself, instead of thinking like there's no one out there for you, you're never going to find the right person, realize that the more you turn down the wrong people, the more you start to love yourself, the more you start to have self-respect, and the more you will be better aligned to meet people that are like you, to meet people that have that same level of self-respect for themselves, that want a relationship because they don't find it to be scary. They see it as the next step in life, We need to stop ignoring what people are saying and start really seeing it for what it is. Because until we stop doing this, we're going to continuously get our hearts broken. And though we can kind of blame that person, we also need to blame ourselves, because it's not about what they're saying. It's not about the potential. It's not about any of that. It's about their actions. It's about what you're seeing right in front of you right now. Are they showing you that you matter? Are they showing you that you're worth the extra effort? Are they showing you that they want to talk to you every day, that they want to see you when they can? Are they putting in that effort? Because if the answer is no, then you already know the answer. You just don't want to hear it. And we are all guilty of that. So never beat yourself up for it, because trust me, more often than not, many of us will run dead relationships into the ground. It's just kind of natural for us because we never really had the parents or, like the education to understand how all of this works. The shadow work, the inner child healing, the wounds, the trauma bonding, the codependency, we never really talked about that. And now we finally are. So that is my little speech on dating. And if you guys have any questions, anything, leave a comment and I will try to cover that as well. I love you guys so much. Have a good night. Bye.